Hey everybody, I'm Scott Allen Miller. Today on Sam IT, we're going to tackle the question of what is the difference between an administrator and an engineer. This one comes up a lot because these titles get thrown about like crazy and incredibly inappropriately. In so many cases, people see administrators as lower level like L1 and L2 and engineers as senior level like L3 or higher, and this is completely wrong. If anything, if they were to have levels, the administrators should be the higher one, not the lower one, but we don't normally think of them as levels because that's not what they are. So what are they? Well, there are two different aspects that most roles within IT and a lot of things in life have to deal with. One is planning and design, the other is operations. In the world of IT, we use the term engineer pretty accurately when describing people who engineer things, people who build solutions, people who design things. Engineers work from a productivity value system. That means that what we want from an engineer is for them to be productive, make a lot of designs, design a lot of things. That's what makes an engineer good, on top of doing a good job with their designs, of course. An administrator is the opposite. We don't care how much work they get done, we only care that they get the job done that's needed. They're operational. And what is important with administrators, their value system, is around availability. An administrator that's available 24/7 has advantages that an engineer doesn't. We don't care when an engineer works. It doesn't matter at all as long as their work gets done. But an administrator, it matters when they do it because they have to react when systems fail or when systems need something done because they're operations. Putting these two together in single roles is common, making a single person wear two hats, but it's generally a bad idea because the things that make you good at being an engineer automatically make you be bad at being an administrator. Not that you can't have the skills for both and switch from one role to the other, but putting them together for one person in one life is really bad because they're trying to be productive on one hand but trying to be available all the time on the other, and normally it's the lack of needing to be productive that makes administrators able to handle the incredibly demanding availability schedule that they keep. And vice versa, it is because engineers get to work whenever they want to make themselves productive and take time off as needed, that keeps them productive. And if they have to do the things that administrators do, watching things all the time, always being on call, then they can't be productive. In either case, you're going to make somebody burn out. If you're in a really light environment where your engineering needs almost never exist and the administrator almost never gets called off hours, well, yeah, mixing hats does happen, but it also means you're not getting an efficient engineer or an efficient administrator. You're getting a person who's getting paid to be the skill of both and not doing really much of either. That's probably not ideal at all. So there's no great solution. What big companies do, and it works well, is they have a team of engineers and a team of administrators, and the two don't cross over, but they do work with each other because one obviously supports the needs of the other. It is important to understand, though, that engineers are generally useless at the L1 level. You don't need a junior engineer. Engineers need to be a certain level to be useful because they're creating stuff that production is going to use. So typically, engineers kind of only come in L2 and L3, and this gives that impression that engineering is a higher or more senior position than administrators, which often come in L1s. We can use an awful lot of L1 administrators because there's a lot of simple tasks that need to be done promptly, and L1s can be very good for that. However, because of the needs of operations in a production environment, generally administrators are immensely more valuable and important to an organization than engineers. And so while an administration team might have lots of L1s, some L2s, and a few L3s, it can also use concepts like L4 and L5. These are real things that are found in real environments because the importance of operations can become so high. This is where you get the people who are worth hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, $300,000, $400,000 to $500,000 a year for an administrator, while uncommon, does exist, but for an engineer would make no sense at all. You can simply hire more lower-end people to fill in the gaps. Administrators bring a value that engineers cannot. And this is because you can't throw more administrators at an uptime problem. They just get in the way. You run into the mythical man month. So administrators have a special ability to go higher. And so if you were to look at these things as levels, it's really that administration has a larger dynamic range. But what's important, engineers design systems, and so their time is all about being productive, and it doesn't matter when they work. And administrators are all about controlling operations. These are the ones who run the actual live business. They have a higher dynamic range, and it matters when they're available and that they can solve problems quickly. Engineers really don't have to focus on problem solving. They get to work on planning. Administrators have to be problem solvers and deal with triage all the time, but they don't need to plan. And so if you're looking at a Myers-Briggs chart, engineers typically are going to move towards the planning side of the spectrum, and administrators are going to move towards the perceiver side of the spectrum, at least as to who is going to be happy and really valuable in that role. Like I said, lots of people can wear both hats and move back and forth as needed for an organization or between different positions. So don't think just because someone's an administrator they could never be an engineer or vice versa, but you do have to understand that at different points within their job, they are at least doing different things, and switching those hats can make them less productive as they try to do both things that are not very conducive to working together. But overall, just understand that engineers and administrators do two different things with the same given technology. So we have system administrators and system engineers. We have network administrators and network engineers. We have database administrators and database engineers, and so forth. Almost every role within IT has both hats to wear. Some, like systems, have so much engineering that we almost always have an engineering department in a company of any size. Others, like the help desk, have essentially no engineering, and any amount of engineering that would need to be done is simply done by someone else wearing that hat for a few minutes. And some things like desktop, yes, you might have one engineer who oversees things, may not get that title because people don't like applying it to desktop, and lots of administrators because it's very little engineering to a lot of administration, whereas something like trading systems might be a lot of engineering to an equal amount of administration. These things do need to be balanced out depending on the individual needs of the workload and technology in question. But engineering and administration have general purpose descriptions that apply broadly. And by understanding these two roles, we can think about which ones we're doing at what times, how they should affect us, how people we are managing need to be thought of as to what makes them efficient and valuable, and how we should treat them, because you don't want to do things like make your engineer non-productive by keeping them wearing an administrator hat, or making your administrator not available to do what they need to do by constantly making them wear an engineering hat. Thanks for joining me. Remember to like and subscribe, put your comments below. Are you an engineer with an administrator title, an administrator with an engineering title? Do you wear both hats? Do you do neither, but the title's being applied anyway because someone just likes the sound of it? Let me know. And remember, you can always sponsor us on Patreon.